weekly radio show, Governor Pete Ricketts called the actions of those three Husker football players, quote, disgraceful and disrespectful. What happened next was Rose Ivy tweeted at the governor that he would like to sit down and have a discussion with him if he was available. The governor then replied, "Thanks for reaching out. Direct message me your info and we will get something set up right away." The two are working to meet up next week when Nebraska has an off week. Matt, let's bring you back now for this. What's your take on the latest development that an active student athlete will be visiting with a sitting governor to talk about the important issues of the day?
Well, Mike, obviously this is a very complex issue, and I guess the first thing that comes to mind to me is that we live in a great country because all of these things can happen, because Michael Rose Ivy and his teammates can take a knee. That's a great example of how great a country we live in and how lucky we are to be able to protest that way. In many countries, if you protested that way, you may lose your life. And so the fact that they were able to protest is a positive thing. And I give Pete Ricketts a lot of credit. Governor Ricketts has an open door policy, and he's going to meet with Michael Rose Ivy, and I think that's really important. And hopefully these two guys can sit down and they can make their viewpoints heard, and hopefully ultimately something good comes out of all of this. And that's the point of their protest. So hopefully we find some good down the road.
And it's pretty great that a discussion will happen. That's maybe the most important thing that can come from any of this. Now, that being said, the university president chimed in saying, "I want every Nebraska student, faculty, and staff member to know I'm unwavering in my support of your right to participate in debate/dialogue." And the Association of Students of the University of Nebraska gathered on Wednesday and passed a resolution declaring support for the exercise of freedom of opinion and expression. Matt, how does the campus seem to be responding to this? What's it like there right now?
Well, there's a lot of differing opinions, you know, and that's another great example of college life. There's a lot of people from different backgrounds. There's different meaning for the flag for different people based on their family experiences, the way that they were grown, the way that they grew up. And you know, I mean, for me, I was taught to take my hat off and put my hand on my heart and salute the flag. And when I look at the flag during the anthem, I think about those that have lost their lives in wars fighting for our freedom on the beaches at Omaha Beach and Pearl Harbor and Vietnam, the men and women that sacrificed their lives for us. That's what I think about, and yet everybody has a different opinion and a different meaning for that flag. And so I think it's no different here in Nebraska. You have differing opinions, and that's the great thing about America, is that we can all have our opinions on this. But I think you can really look at the leadership at the University of Nebraska, and you can be proud of the way that they have handled this on campus. And I think every student that goes to the University of Nebraska right now can be proud of how they handled it and how they've protected their freedom of speech.
What's interesting is that it's a social countrywide issue, yet we're talking about it here on a college sports network. But the thing is, Matt, it's nothing new. Student athletes taking a stand for an issue they believe in has been around for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just another example. This protest is another example of what's happened for the last few weeks when it comes to this particular issue. And obviously we have a great country, but we can always be better. We can always work on things and work towards more social equality across every race. And so this is their platform. This is their ability to make a statement. And the question now is, now that you've made your protest, for those that have done it, whether it's at Nebraska or on a professional team or anywhere around the country, the question is, what are you going to do moving forward to try to make things better? It's not just the protest itself. It's what are you going to do personally? What are we going to do as a society to make things better moving forward?
And, you know, to give some specifics, too, remember Missouri football last year. There was racism on campus, and the team decided we're not going to play until something gets done. We saw Kane Coulter a couple years ago at Northwestern make his stand to try to get more benefits for student athletes. This is something we've seen. I mean, it can date back to wars in the past as well. But you started to take me there, Matt. My last question for you on this topic is, what's next?
Well, a good step in the right direction is Michael Rose Ivy meeting with Governor Ricketts. I think that's a great step in the right direction. And then it comes down to these players that protested last week during the Northwestern game and took that knee during the national anthem. the question is, what are they going to do moving forward? And as I think about it, I think of a great example here in Nebraska is Tom Osborne's Teammates organization. It's a mentoring program that started with Nebraska football players meeting for 1 hour a week with one of the youth across the city of Lincoln, and it's now grown across Nebraska and across the region. But that's a great example of how Michael Rose-Ivy and these other players could meet with somebody in the community here in Nebraska, another young person, and try to give them their viewpoint. And maybe one of those kids will grow up and be a police officer down the road, or maybe they can form a bond and a relationship that'll change each other's lives. So that's one example, but I think the main thing is, Mike, you know, what are these players going to do? I think they started by taking this stand. I think it's very important, and I think it's great that they chose to do this. But it's not just the act of the protest, it's the meaning of the protest that everybody needs to get back to, and that's where Michael Rose-Ivy and these players need to have a plan in place about how they're going to make a difference in society moving forward.
Matt Davison, thanks for joining us from Lincoln, where this is all the epicenter right now. We'll get a little bit more from Matt on the upcoming Nebraska-Illinois game a bit later on in the show.